Breaking news into CBS Sports HQ. Caitlin Clark took to social media to announce that her season is over. Clark hasn't played since July 15th after suffering a groin injury. She was limited to just 13 games this season. The Fever are 13-15 without her this year and just a game and a half ahead of the Sparks for that final playoff spot. For more, we welcome in CBS Sports WNBA analyst Erica Ayala, and the Fever are at this point are just now used to, I guess, playing without Caitlin Clark with the number of games. She's appeared in just 13 this season. Indy, meanwhile, clinging to that final playoff spot, just considering where they are in the standings and just the potential of a first-round matchup that would maybe be the Lynx. Are you surprised at all by this news of her being shut down at this point?
Oh, first, let's take a breath, right? There's a lot going on here. And I think there's an element of surprise. Also, you feel for a young player to officially be announced with a season-ending injury. Then when you talk about that she's only played 13 games, it was starting to, with every game that Clark missed this season, to become more of an outside chance that after this most recent injury that she would be reactivated, especially with the Indiana Fever not in a top 4 spot for the playoffs. So there's a lot here. I'm not completely surprised, but I feel for Clark. I feel for Indiana, who Clark is one of 5 players, including they announced Chloe Bibby today, with a season-ending injury, Kiana. I mean, they have really been going through it. And, that's just a difficult way to try to navigate what was supposed to be a very promising season if you are head coach Stephanie White.
You talk about those 5 players they've now lost to season-ending injuries. Now, with Clark included in this, what does this news mean now for the Liberty's chances at the postseason?
Well, like you said, they are still in a playoff spot. Unfortunately for the Sparks, they had their injury woes early, and that really stalled out how they started the season. You look at other teams, in these standings. I mean, honestly, Seattle has been struggling. So, I think that Indiana, if they can find a way like they have been with the healthy pieces they have, is that a team that maybe they can, perhaps sneak ahead of just to get a little more comfortably into the standings? I guess we'll find out. But this is a tough run here for the Indiana Fever. They've been hanging on without Caitlin Clark. Just shy of a 500 record, as you mentioned earlier. But without Caitlin Clark and without the hope and the promise, as I mentioned earlier, of her potential return, then you're looking at a team that, some people will think, is it better that they maybe don't make the playoffs overall? Like, this quote unquote tanking, that's not really something that I think any team should ever do, period. But I don't know if that's where the Fever want to go with this. But it becomes, now that Clark is officially out, how many healthy bodies do they actually have to make a playoff run if they hope to make one? We know that all of the teams that get to play in the first round will at least have one home game. That was a source of contention last year when the Fever were in the playoffs, and the fans didn't get to see them play because they didn't get a win in the first round. That was changed. But now, even if the Fever are there, for a lot of people, the draw is Clark, and we know now, will not be a part of any playoff run that happens for Indiana.
Yeah, we talked about where Indiana currently is in the standings. 3 games to go, just 1 game against a team that is in the postseason. Meanwhile, those Sparks that are nipping at their heels, 4 games to go, but only 2 of those games against teams in the postseason. But Erica, so much has been made about Clark's impact on the league and just its ratings. But just now, let's take a step back and look big picture. How much of a blow is this for the WNBA as a whole?
It's an interesting question, because that was what a lot of people said. We even had reporters, in what I felt was an unprecedented move, ask the WNBA, as in the league, for a response for at the time what was a pretty routine ankle injury, because that's the pull, that's the energy that Clark brings to the WNBA. That being said, we've seen career level performances throughout the league, including from the Indiana Fever with Kelsey Mitchell. And so I think what we're seeing is that, yes, while the hook for a lot of people and a lot of the attention in Caitlin Clark unfortunately will not see the court again, there is some great basketball being played to the tune of September 11 is the last day of the regular season, and we don't know what the seeding is for the playoffs. We know some teams that have earned a playoff berth, they've clinched a berth, but including even again in that 8 spot, we don't know what the shuffle of the deck is going to give us. So there is still a lot of very important, very significant basketball to be played as we come down the stretch, which means that we are going to get some fantastic performances. Unfortunately, not from Clark. We also know that at least in their upcoming game against Indiana, we also know Angel Reese will not be playing. That was due to a suspension, however. But even without those superstars, the young superstars, there is plenty of great talent here in the WNBA.
Absolutely. Well, she just finalized this conversation on Clark. I mean, we didn't really get to see much of her this season, but how would you assess the season that was for her? I mean, she averaged 16.5 points, 5 boards, and 8.8 assists. What did you make of her limited outings?
Well, just that it was limited. That being said, I was at that first game, Indiana versus New York, and that looked like we were on a trajectory for that to be a fantastic matchup. Caitlin Clark, after returning from injury, one of the unfortunately few times that she returned, she had a fantastic performance against New York early on, shooting her, signature logo shots. But unfortunately, we saw that she was gassed after that game, and that started to just unfortunately be the turn to where we are now. I think the only other thing that I want to say before we head out of here, and that maybe we'll see Indiana reflect on, is that, again, Clark is not the only player to be injured. And I want to underline that Clark had several injuries this season. Now, you can maybe say that overcompensation, or some of the injuries were on the same side of her body. Maybe they were all related. But are there questions maybe that the organization is going to answer, or just on how they're dealing with injuries? They had several season-ending injuries just in 2025, Clark being among them. She had a few times where she had to step away from the game. And that's also talking about a larger conversation where there have been a lot of WNBA players that have complained about the schedule, the physicality, and is this something that the league and individual teams are going to look at in the offseason?
Absolutely. I think a lot of questions have been raised this season. A lot of superstars missing in action this year, all due to injury, whether those are scheduling issues or what it might be. Certainly something that will be addressed. But one thing that we know for certain, we will not see Caitlin Clark for the remainder of this season. But we do know a healthy Caitlin Clark is good for the W. So we will see her next season. As always, Erica Ayala, thank you so much for the latest. Oh, Clark did take to X to give insight on what's transpired. She said, "I'd hoped to share a better update, but I will not be returning to play this season. I spent hours in the gym every day with a singular goal of getting back out there. Disappointed isn't a big enough word to describe how I am feeling. I want to thank everyone who had my back through all of the uncertainty. This has been incredibly frustrating, but even in the bad, there is good. The way the fans continue to show up for me and for the Fever brought me so much joy and important perspective. I am so proud of how this team has only gotten stronger through adversity this year. Now it's time to close out the season and claim our spot in the playoffs."